Some people think that the success of modern science in explaining much of what we see going on around us in the world means that we no longer need God as an explanation. And many people think that the theory of evolution has disproved the Bible's teaching on the creation of the universe. Let's look at those two ideas. Firstly, the idea that modern science can explain everything, so we no longer need God as an explanation. The simple answer to that is that science can explain how many things work, but it can never explain why they happen. If I asked you, why is the kettle boiling? You could explain the science, how electricity works, how it produces heat, how that causes water to boil and so on. But you could just as well say, because I want a cup of tea for my friend who's coming round. Science can't explain that. It can explain how, but not explain why. Science can't even answer the most basic question of why we expect there to be rules that explain how the physical world works. But Christianity can. Science only makes sense because there is a God who is orderly and rational, who keeps the universe going in an orderly way. And in practice, no one acts as though science can explain everything. When someone's dear friend dies, I've never heard them say, "Oh well, they were just an incredibly complex load of chemicals that had combined to produce life for a while." No, we all believe that those we love are something far more than just complex chemicals, and that their death is not just a natural process, but a devastating loss. Secondly, the idea that evolution disproves the Bible's teaching about creation. What is science? A typical definition is knowledge about or study of the natural world based on facts learned through experiments and observation. Science is based on observation. It is tested by experiments, which means science can only tell you what is going on in the present. Scientists have no scientific method for examining what happened in the past. To try and describe what happens in the past using science, you have to make lots of assumptions. Assumptions which have nothing to do with science and which you have no way of proving. The theory of evolution is simply not science, because it's attempting to tell us what happened in the past, based not only on experiment and observation, but also on a lot of very questionable assumptions. The discipline that studies the past is history, not science. And history relies ultimately on the testimony of eyewitnesses. So if you want to know how the universe began, you need the testimony of someone who was there at the time. And there was only one person who was there, God himself. So the only way of finding out the beginning of the universe is from God's eyewitness testimony, which he has caused to be recorded for us in the Bible. There we find that God made a perfect world from nothing, and that it was human disobedience which brought suffering and death into our world. But the Bible also wonderfully tells us that the Son of God became a man, came into his own creation, and there lived a perfect life, and died on the cross and rose again from the dead. And all that was seen by many eyewitnesses who have left us their testimony in the Bible, so that we might know the history of it with certainty. And Jesus promises that those who rely on his death on the cross in their place will be forgiven.